All right. Hello and welcome to the World Map Podcast. We are live, and this is episode number 24 coming at you the week of October 25th, 2015. I am your host, Josh. And usually joining me are a couple of co hosts, but Clark, after last week talking about how Dance Dance Revolution is one of the top 10 games of all time ever made, and attributing that to the reason that he is so agile and young and spry at the age of 30, and talking about how it's kept him in such good shape playing DDR, and he owes so much to that. Can't join us this week because he threw his back out. So hopefully everything's okay there, and hopefully he's able to join us as usual again next week. But probably no DDR for him for a while, and seems to me like maybe a little bit of a mistake putting that on his top 10 list. And then, of course, our other host, Nick, he's actually got too long of a Netflix backlog to join us this week. I think possibly he has stopped entirely playing any video games because Destiny was so horrible that it turned him off from gaming for the rest of his life. And now he only uses his gaming consoles as a vehicle for watching Netflix. And tearing him away for the podcast is just seeming to be impossible. So here we are, going to undertake a quick solo mission with you guys this week. And we've done a few of these episodes before where I just yell at you, and we go through the typical show routine. And actually, sometimes they're some of our most downloaded episodes. So, we'll see how this goes. But let's go ahead and jump right into what I've been playing this week with the backlog. And just want to throw one shout out there real quick on this week's backlog. Last week I talked about how there was going to be this nice little game coming out on Steam on October the 21st. And I couldn't say anything really about it because it was under embargo until release day. It was kind of a little stealth release on the part of Q Games, the studio that you know for creating the Pixel Junk games, Pixel Junk Monsters, Pixel Junk Shooters 1 and 2, all those. All great games. You love all the Q Games stuff. And Studio 11 actually helped Q Games with porting Pixel Junk 1 and 2, as we know, has been combined for Pixel Junk Ultimate on platforms such as the PlayStation Vita. Well, 11 helped get the Pixel Junk Shooter Ultimate onto Steam. So that game is finally on PC now. If you've not played that, highly recommend it. It's really good. I won't go into too much depth because I figure a lot of people have probably played it, or at least you know what it's about and you've just been waiting for it to come to Steam. Now you can nab that. So that's the game that I alluded to that I couldn't talk about last week. Just want to make sure everyone's aware that Pixel Junk Shooter Ultimate is now on Steam. And I will say, I know a lot of people probably play it with a controller paired to their PC, but I tried it out actually with keyboard and mouse, and I was very much liked how the keyboard and mouse controls work and how those are mapped into Pixel Junk Shooter Ultimate. So for some reason, being able to do the right click with the mouse and kind of angle the direction of your kind of hook shot as you're flying by something you want to pick up on the screen actually works really well. So I really like that mechanic on PC. So you can go check that out. But another really cool thing that I played this week that is not necessarily has to be tied to gaming, but that was Google Cardboard. We talk a lot about VR on this show, but if you've never heard of Google Cardboard, you're probably not alone. And I'm holding one up here for folks watching on the live show right now. So if you're listening to the audio podcast, you can go check us out on YouTube. Just search for the World Map Podcast. You'll find us. And you can go back and check out the video and see one of these Google Cardboards in action. But this is Google's answer to the VR market, which is very different from what a lot of the other competitors in the space are doing. And Google's answer is really to make VR cheap and accessible to everyone, And so it's an interesting approach. If you get a Google Cardboard, I think you can get them for 20 bucks or something maybe, which if you think about the fact that it's just a piece of cardboard with a couple of lenses inserted into it, seems kind of pricey, but in comparison to other VR experiences, it's not that much. Now, what you're getting is literally just a box. You're literally just getting a cardboard box. It comes flat, laid down flat, and what you have to do is assemble it. So you take it out of the paper envelope that it comes in, and you kind of do this little origami project. It's very easy. I was very intimidated when I first pulled it out of the box and saw how many things there were to fold, but it's actually very easy. Everything's numbered, and you kind of just fold one number over to the other number, and you'll kind of see, well, there are these little pegs inside the cardboard, and I'm pointing to those for those who are looking at the video. And you just kind of insert the cuts of the cardboard into the cutout pegs, and you get this nice little thing that looks like an old-fashioned viewfinder. And if you'll excuse the ripping noise here, you'll see that it's Velcro. There are Velcro pieces on it, and the Velcro is for you to put your mobile phone into your smartphone. So, you know, obviously this is a cheap thing. It's just cardboard. There's no technology built into the Google Cardboard itself. It uses your smartphone. Now, this is a little different from, like, say, the Samsung's Gear VR, which requires you to have a Samsung phone, which is kind of a turnoff of that for me, because I'm not an Android guy. I'm definitely an iOS guy, an iPhone guy. So you can see I've got the iPhone here, and all you do is you just lay it right inside the cardboard, fold it back shut, press the Velcro down, and when you put it up to your eyes at that point, what the iPhone is going to be doing is creating the same image, the same video playing on the left side and the right side, so that your left eye and right eye each get the same picture. So as your eyes are focusing, towards the center, focusing those images together, you get that full surround VR effect. You can see there's a spot here to stick your nose in, and you can kind of just get like nice up in it. What you have to do is you have to download apps and then install VR programs into these apps that support the Google Cardboard. So one of those apps, and I'm just going to pull my phone out of here. One of those apps is called Verse, and I'm just going to spell that out for you here, VRSE, Verse. And there's also a program called InVR, just INVR, on the App Store. There are several others, but those are two that had multiple things in them that you could download. So once you get the app, the way that it works is you have to download each program within the app that you want to use with Google Cardboard. The one that I found most appealing, and the way that I found out about Google Cardboard and what they're doing, is because the New York Times partnered with the Verse app and created this completely VR story they did about an artist's work in Manhattan. And I watched that, and as I'm watching it, you're standing on the street in Manhattan. You can turn your head around, left, right, up, down. There's a part where you're flying on a helicopter, and you can lean out the door and look behind you. It's this full live video with real people in it. Extremely immersive and realistic, and you can just kind of look anywhere at any time, regardless of whether you're looking at the speaker who's talking to you or whatever the main focal point of the video at that time is. You can look anywhere at anything you want, and so it's this truly immersive VR experience. Some of the other apps I tried, I think because this is like the kind of the fledgling, lesser known, cheaper version of VR, the poor man's VR, if you will. The software available on Google Cardboard seems not that great in comparison to what we're seeing on Gear, on Vive, Oculus, PlayStation VR, etc. A lot of that is because I think we have a lot of smaller indie devs with less resources who are creating content for Google Cardboard. But when you have somebody with the resources like the New York Times to do something like they did, really good, high quality, very immersive. It was just unfortunately the only thing that I tried that felt truly immersive. So I think Google Cardboard still very much in its very baby step early stages. I also don't really like how you have to hold it up the entire time and kind of be holding on it the whole time. There's no mechanism to strap it to your head. I guess you could build in something with a rubber band or something like that to fix that. kind of do whatever you want to do there. So, there's a little bit of light that leaks in from the sides, and so it's not a completely immersive experience, but it's still it's pretty neat. I like the concept. I'm very interested to see what the future of VR in general is. I think it's going to be huge. It's going to be just amazingly huge over the next couple of years. It's going to be the next, iPhone type of technology. But what will be interesting is see which companies' VR products and software actually survive in this initial landscape. So, Google Cardboard, neat product. You can get one online really, really cheap. I recommend checking it out. It's surely now that the New York Times and big brands like that are on board, surely some other folks will be developing things for it. One last thing that I should mention about it is on the side, there's actually a magnet on the outside that you can slide up and down with your finger while you're holding it up. And it has a magnet on the opposite side that's on the inside of the Google Cardboard that you can't see. And that magnet is actually moving the magnet on the inside, which your phone is then seeing and reacting to as it's playing a program. So for example, if I wanted to walk forward, I would just kind of slide that magnet. If I wanted to stop walking, I would just kind of slide it again, kind of like a start-stop function. And that's how a lot of the software with Google Cardboard works right now, is just with that one simple switch. And I think that simplicity is going to force people to think differently about how they develop software for this piece of, I don't even really want to call it hardware because it's a cardboard box, but hardware, if you will. And then we got a question from the live viewers. How big is the box roughly? Okay, so we're gonna answer that question, and that's from Seymour. I would say the box is probably about 8 inches across. It's a rectangle, obviously, so it's about 8 inches across, probably 5-6 inches tall. And then you can see the kind of the depth here is another 5 or 6 inches. So it's not very big at all. Fits in my hands nicely. You can see it's about the width of my face. I mean, obviously you can't really do anything to size it. It's kind of one size fits all, but I think it'll fit most people pretty easily. So again, other folks, live viewers, feel free, like Seymour did, to chime in. We got the Q&A open on the live show panel, so happy to take more questions. So that's going to about do it for Google Cardboard. I will move on next and talk about something else that I've been playing with this week, and that is Metal Gear Solid 5. Kind of consuming just about all of my gaming time, really. MGS 5, it's definitely made its way so far into my top 5 games of 2015. It's a really good game. It's really just more Metal Gear, but like I talked about last week, I think they've really perfected what Metal Gear is. And I agree. So with Seymour, it's a lot of fun. The traversal, though, gives me some issues in Metal Gear Solid 5. I don't like that there's no fast travel between locations. I have to, obviously ride my horse or, get in the helicopter. And I think that's the problem, is if I want to do a side op and I'm on Mother Base, I have to call in the helicopter, get in it, ride it out, wait on a bunch of load screens, select a side op, then ride the helicopter to the side op location and drop down. Then usually ride my horse some more distance to the side op location. So this, like, having these intermediary screens that have to load and menus you have to go through just to go on one mission and go from mission to mission, it takes away a little bit of that seamlessness that I really wish the game had. And it causes me to spend 2 to 3 hours doing just a couple of side ops where, really I should be able to go through the missions faster than that and feel like I could. But the game's sort of limiting me and making me go back and do things in other locations and go through menus and loading. And so it also kind of juxtaposed with that is the fact that checkpoints in this game are a little few and far between, and it's not always clear like when the game is saving. They did, I think, patch in that the yellow spinning circle that appears in the corner of the screen, it says checkpoint now, so you kind of know, okay, I've hit a checkpoint. If I load the game back up, I should be right here. But why not just give us a fast save option? Like, why not? Or even just let me load up and select a save slot or something. It'd be great, especially if you wanted to go back and revert back to an old save point because you want to approach a mission differently or something like that. So the checkpoint system seems very outdated. It makes me really just kind of scratch my head for Metal Gear Solid 5, and I not a fan of that. And it really, at first I thought, oh, this is kind of addicting, and it's making me feel like I really have to go from episode to episode, and everything's so fluid, and it's really like trying to drag me along and keep me playing. But at some point, it just becomes annoying not knowing like where the next checkpoint is going to happen to pop up. And I really wish that I could just save wherever I want to save, like every other game in that's out there right now. So I also think the side ops in Metal Gear Solid 5 are going to get old very quickly. I've done about 10 of them at this point, and there are some that are kind of like target practice-y and things like that on Mother Base, but most of them actually just involve doing an extraction. Go in, extract a prisoner, go in and extract a soldier who you want for your team or whatever. So they're pretty much all just like, let's sneak into a base that's a little bit smaller than a base you would sneak into for a main mission, and then let's Fulton recovery somebody and pop the balloon on them and pop them up and then move on to the next one. Sometimes it's an animal instead of a person. That doesn't really change the approach so much, and I just wish that the side ops had a little more variety to them aside from go in, attach a balloon to something, and then move on to the next one. So I feel like, also that fun, while this game is certainly extremely, extremely fun, I feel like fun is a little bit discouraged in Metal Gear Solid 5. You get all these great new weapons, and I haven't even come close to unlocking all of them, but you can call in mortar strikes and helicopter support and all these things to help you assault an enemy base. But the whole time the game is telling you, like, it's going to be expensive, maybe you don't really want to do it, or, we're not going to give you an S rank or an A rank, if you let the enemy know you're there and you don't stealth your whole way through it or whatever. And I realize that Metal Gear Solid is a stealth franchise, but, I really, if they're going to put all these like cool, loud weapons in there and they're going to make it more action oriented than they have in the past, like, just let me play with it. Like, make everything equal and let it just be more of an open world sandbox and let me have fun. Don't discourage me. Don't constantly tell me like, here's this great new thing, but yeah, you probably don't really want to use it. I mean, maybe just use it sparingly or whatever. So a little interesting that they would make a decision like that. Overall, we've still got Halo 5 to go this coming week. We've got Fallout 4 coming up in November, as well as Rise of the Tomb Raider. So a lot of this year's biggest games have yet to release. And so I don't know if this will stay in my top 5, because as I play it more and more, I am starting to realize it gets a little samey. It has some significant issues in how just, the systems of the game are designed. But I will say, the moment-to-moment in-game gameplay, that base infiltration kind of thing that they've done with the stealth and open it up a little bit more, it is, A++, a great game, really, really fun, despite some of the issues that I've encountered with it. I will say also that I have played a little bit of Wii U this week and got back into Super Mario 3D World, which I'm starting to wonder if it really necessarily deserves the world title, just to be compared to games like Super Mario World, because although it's extremely fun, and Mario games have never been bad, there's almost never a bad Mario game, and there's a lot of good things going on with this game. It's a lot of fun to play. Been playing through it co-op with Peach and Mario, and it's a good game, so I want to establish that first. But I do wonder about the jumping in Super Mario 3D World and whether anyone else has had issues with that, because the depth perception in Super Mario 3D World seems very off. It's hard to tell when I jump in the air and I'm trying to like push forward and backward in the air to determine where I'm going to land and where my shadow is and that kind of thing. It's difficult to determine, am I actually going to land on that Goomba's head, or am I going to land right in front of him or right behind him so that he can walk into me and kill me? And it's just this weird floaty jumping that the depth on it seems to be off. I think the camera feels a little pulled out a little bit too far. And it's like they took the 2D, new Super Mario Bros. Art style and tried to, shoehorn that into a 3D Galaxy style type game. And it just doesn't work. I think they need to pick one on the next iteration of Mario. I do want to answer a couple of questions coming in from the live chat. We do have one asking about Skyrim. Talking about, do we ever play Skyrim? Yeah, played Skyrim extensively a couple of years ago. Actually, probably one of the games the year it came out that I put the most hours in. Probably 80 plus hours, close to 100 hours of Skyrim when the year that came out. So that is up there for games that I've sunk the most time into, really of all time. So that one, that's a good one. I think what I really liked about Skyrim was just the storytelling was very light in it. It didn't force it upon you. It let you really create your own story, do a lot of things in the order that you wanted to do them in, and really just explore that world and kind of find things on your own. I think one of my best memories of Skyrim is I remember being up in the mountains, up in the snowy mountains, and just like randomly stumbling down a crevice through some caves and finding myself inside of some dwarven temple that was huge that I spent 3-4 hours underground exploring and fighting these contraptions and booby traps that were down there and trying to survive. And it was just a really interesting experience, that game, and just those unexpected moments like that were really what made me love Skyrim so much. So thanks for that question. Appreciate all the live viewers and all the new downloads we've been getting lately. So thanks for that. So I think I'm going to go ahead and move on. We'll talk about some more games that I've been playing next week when the guys are back and we can bounce some things back and forth. Not to mention, got Halo 5 coming up with its 9 gigabyte day one patch apparently coming up this week. So we will certainly have lots of Halo 5 stuff to talk about next week when we're back to full strength. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about news, though, and call in the news motorcycle. All right, so this week in news, I think probably the biggest news. Again, this is the World Map podcast, so we cover not just video games, but everything in the world that could be on the map in terms of movies, entertainment, technology. We talked about Google Cardboard, VR a minute ago, comics, everything. Actually, I'm going to talk a little bit about a musical in a little bit, so stay tuned for that. But the biggest news coming out this week is probably that final full-length theatrical trailer for Star Wars The Force Awakens, which aired on halftime at Monday Night Football, which was the stupidest decision ever. I guess Disney owns ESPN, and it was their way to force people to watch Philly and the Giants play, which, like, could we pick two worst teams to unveil an awesome movie during? Sorry about that there, Giants and Eagles fans, but you guys kind of suck this year. Sorry. So Star Wars trailer, I thought that this trailer was not as good as the other trailers that we have seen for The Force Awakens. I liked the kind of the more actiony, mysterious vibe of the one that Luke voiced. Talking about the Force, and then we had the darker, deeper Kylo Ren probably type voice about the awakening of the light side and the dark side. I like those trailers better, and we had you had the ending, that kind of like exclamation point on everything with Han and Chewie, finding the Millennium Falcon and walking in there again and saying that they're home. So I thought that that trailer was a little stronger for those reasons. But this was by no means a bad trailer. It seems like it focuses a little more on Daisy Ridley's character, Rey, and it focuses on Finn and John Boyega's character as well. So it seemed to focus on the new characters a little more, which I guess is probably appropriate to kind of get us a little more familiar with those characters leading into it. Kylo Ren was focused heavily. To me, the big thing, and if you've been reading about this trailer, this is nothing new to you, but the big thing is that in none of these trailers, with the exception of maybe a hand in one of them, have we seen Luke Skywalker. And so there's all this speculation about where's Luke, why isn't he in the trailers? We know Mark Hamill's in the films. What's happened with Luke? Has he gone to the dark side, or is he a character that we don't know, that we know about, but we don't know that he's actually Luke Skywalker yet? There are all these theories going around, of course. So really interesting to see that. The pre-order tickets went on sale the same night that this last trailer went out. Crashed websites for Fandango and Regal Cinemas, AMC, Alamo Drafthouse, all the big theater chains websites totally down. I actually was trying to order on Fandango the entire time on the app and kept getting an error message when I got the complete purchase. Luckily, upon checking email, found out that the purchases had been completing, even though I'd been getting an error message. So got some extra tickets. Not a bad thing when it comes to Star Wars. And the other cool thing is, we're all expecting this film has a December 18th release date on Friday. So everyone's expecting that midnight release on, 17th going into the 18th. And here they come out and say, no, the earliest showings of The Force Awakens are going to be like 7:15 p.m. Eastern time on December 17th, on that Thursday, for The Force Awakens. So this is just one of the hugest movies, maybe the biggest movie to ever come out to theaters, and they're doing this, and I was really lucky to be able to nab some of those 7:15 tickets for December 17th, and just can't wait to go be one of the first people to experience The Force Awakens. So that's going to be awesome. In other news, a report from Kotaku this week, gaming site Kotaku, reported on Destiny and kind of the real story behind the making of Destiny. And it's a shame Nick isn't here, because he could maybe try to defend Destiny a little bit. He's a big Destiny player. I've been kind of not a big fan of Destiny from the start. Had it pre-ordered. Big mistake on my part to pre-order a game like that, and just was not a fan of Destiny. Just no story to it. I mean, all the complaints that everyone's heard over and over again. Obviously, they did fix a lot of that, admittedly, with the Taken King a year later. Just made everybody pay for the game again to get that content. So I think in the grand scheme of things, even folks who have enjoyed Destiny and come to like it, would admit that there are a lot of issues with the game, and that Bungie's vision for the game was obviously not that well realized, and it's taken them a long time to create what would seem like a full, complete game to most gamers. So this Kotaku article goes into detail a little more about that, kind of an expose piece. So recommend everyone go read it. It's called The Messy True Story Behind the Making of Destiny. And it's kind of a longer article, but very interesting. Talking about how a large piece of the game was not finished. They came right out and said, yeah, we didn't finish the full game that we wanted to be part of the game at release. And so some of that later became the Taken King, but a whole other piece of that content that was supposed to be in the original game was passed off to a different developer owned by Activision Blizzard. And Bungie is actually helping High Moon Studios work on that extra piece of content that was passed off. And turns out that content, according to Kotaku, is going to be what becomes Destiny 2 to be released in 2016. So very interesting that we may be seeing Destiny 2 as early as next year already. And most people, I think, would just say that Destiny 1 actually was finally finished this fall, so of 2015. So interesting news there. Recommend you go read it. One other piece of news that I wanted to bring up is just that my frustration with the fact that there's a new podcast series that comes out on Fridays from gaming site Polygon. And that, of course, is the Minimap daily series that they do, and now has a weekly edition that comes out on Fridays called World Map. So I don't know why they don't know how to use Google and figure out that there's already a gaming podcast called World Map out there. So They have been contacted, and the saga will continue there. We'll get that taken care of. But make no mistake, there is one World Map podcast that was in existence well before they decided to start calling something World Map. So shame on you, Polygon. Hopefully we'll get that resolved soon, though. I'm going to move next into we have hobbies. All right. So next on the World Map podcast, talking about non-gaming a little bit. Now that we've covered the backlog and what's in the news, and the old news motorcycle dropped off, I wanted to bring up a musical. Actually, I don't know I don't know what the Venn diagram looks like for gamers and musicals out there, but I would say that a lot of gamers are probably artistically or theatrically inclined, and at least in my experience, and you may have heard about this one, but if you haven't, you got to go check it out. And it is called Hamilton, the musical. And that's Hamilton as in Alexander Hamilton, who, unbeknownst to me, not a president of the United States. Yeah, he's on the $10 bill. I think I knew this deep down. I think if you had asked me to start like reciting presidents, I would have realized this. But yeah, Alexander Hamilton, not a president. Go figure. You learn something new every day. Actually, he was a lot of things, including Secretary of the Treasury. And so I guess he got his claim to fame as a founding father in other ways and ended up on the $10 bill. But yeah, Hamilton the musical is great. It follows the story of this founding father, Alexander Hamilton, as he comes over to America, as he is very good friends with George Washington and going through the Revolution, the creation of a new country. And it follows him into, the executive office, the executive branch, that is, as a member of George Washington's cabinet. It's interesting from a historical perspective because, even though it's a little hard to follow just audibly, listening to a musical, I feel like you still learn, and it still tells an interesting story, and you kind of hear also, how he died and all these other things. But it's really the presentation and how this is, wrapped, the way they create this package and what kind of musical this actually is, because it's kind of a hip hop musical. There are some traditional, musical sounds that you would expect to hear in terms of how the songs go. There's some more ballady type singing going on, but a large portion, probably 80% or more of this musical is rapping and like rap battles. So you've got, these guys, Madison and Hamilton and Adams and Washington and Aaron Burr and all these people throughout U.S. history that you know about, and they're having rap battles with each other. So it's just, if you're a fan of like epic rap battles of history or any of that kind of stuff, you're absolutely going to love Hamilton the musical. Highly recommend it. I think you can only see the play on Broadway right now, but it's available for free to listen to on Spotify, on Amazon Music. If you're a Prime member, you can buy the full albums on iTunes to own. And they aren't paying us to talk about it, but just wanted to let you guys know where you can get it, because I just really recommend everybody go listen to it. And I would also say, if you're kind of iffy after listening to the first half, the second half is actually way, way, way better. I think there's more of those rap battles between the cabinet members and all this kind of cool stuff. So highly recommend, go check out Hamilton the musical. And then this week, just also want to talk a little bit about a little extra topic this week, a little bit of a bonus round. So IGN.com, probably the best best known video game website in the world. They have branches of IGN.com worldwide in many different countries, many different languages. And a lot of what got me into gaming more hardcore and got me into podcasting a lot was my love for some of the old IGN podcasts, like Three Red Lights, The old podcast Beyond with Greg Miller and Ryan Clements and Colin Moriarty's, more so than the new podcast Beyond doesn't do it so much for me. But Greg and Colin now doing PS I Love You XOXO, which is a great show. There was Game Scoop with Damon Hatfield. So a lot of these IGN folks really kind of inspired me and got me into knowing more about how video games are made and developed and published and covered in games journalism and things like that back in the day. So I'm a pretty big fan of IGN. I know a lot of gamers kind of hate on IGN, but I think they do a pretty cool job of what they do. But they released their top 10 games of all time recently. And actually their top 100 games of all time, which to me is kind of silly. Like once you get past like 20, 25, like I feel like it's just a crapshoot. You could throw, there's a big pool of things that you could throw in there. But I personally feel like, a top 10 list is a good place to start. So I wanted to cover, since on episode 10, I covered my top 10 games of all time. And last week, Clark and Nick talked about their top 10 games of all time, including erroneously having DDR in there. I wanted to go through IGN's top 10 games of all time real quick and see what the listeners think about that. So if you're in the live Q&A, feel free to chime in, or you can send questions and reactions to worldmapcast@gmail.com, and we'll talk about them next week. But here are the top 10 games of all time as decided by the editors at IGN.com. Number 10 being Tetris. I can't argue with that. Tetris has been recreated so many ways on so many platforms. And at its core it really is one of the best games of all time because it's just simple. It makes you think. It's got good music. What's not to love about Tetris? I know folks on the DLC podcast like Jeff Kanata and Christian Spicer have argued before that Tetris is the greatest game of all time. Of course, they were joking a little bit, I think, but there's no reason that Tetris could not be in the top 10 games of all time. So not a bad choice by IGN there. Number 9 being Halo 2. That was in Clark and Nick's picks last week, and we kind of argued a little bit over whether Reach is better than Halo 2. I personally like Reach a little bit better than Halo 2. But again, another good solid choice. Number 8, they've got The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Another amazing choice. Not certainly the best of the best in terms of the Zelda games, but a very important and pivotal moment in Zelda's history. I feel like the Ocarina of Time solidified The Legend of Zelda as a franchise that will probably never die for Nintendo, and it introduced the concepts that have come to proliferate the Zelda franchise ever since, with the Hero of Time and Child Link and Adult Link, and if you go back and you read Hyrule Historia, which is the history book out there on The Legend of Zelda that's officially licensed by Nintendo, you also see that the Ocarina of Time is the most important game in the series in terms of the timeline, because the 3 Zelda timelines that all of the games kind of roll up under all splinter off, happening in the Ocarina of Time. Number 7 is Super Metroid. No argument there. I think that would be number 1 for a lot of people. Super Metroid is really perfection in a bottle. I think when it comes to those Metroid style type games, it was what created that genre. And obviously Metroid and that genre existed before, but it really made people see it as its own genre of game and not just another kind of like platformer with some shooting elements and that kind of stuff. I personally like Shadow Complex, which is sort of Super Metroid with a more modern, approach to it. I kind of like Shadow Complex better, and that's in my top 10. But Super Metroid belongs there. Half-Life 2 was their number 6 game. I think people have been waiting on Half-Life 3 and clamoring for that for so long. It's apparent that Half-Life 2 is many people's pinnacle number 1 game of all time. I'm personally not a Half-Life fan. I like a lot of stuff that Valve does, including Portal 2, which is number 5 on IGN's list. Well-deserved. That almost snuck into my top 10. Portal 2 alone, just the writing, it's probably the most well-written game, or in the top 3 most well-written games of all time. from a dialogue perspective. It's just super fun and very witty writing, so I like that. The original Super Mario Bros. Came in at number 4. I think it's a very important game. It established a very important franchise. But at the end of the day, I think Super Mario Bros. Probably nowhere near one of the best Mario games. I don't know if it's really one of the best games either. I mean, from a level design perspective and a historical significance perspective, yeah, it's great. But and I don't know if I'd put it at number 4. They have Doom at number 3. Who didn't play Doom on the PC back in the day? I think it was like amazing for its time, in terms of what it did 3-dimensionally and kind of to help establish the first person shooter genre. But again, you go back and play Doom, it doesn't hold up. I don't think it deserves a number 3 spot. But at number 2, IGN's got The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, which was in my top 3. It was the number 1 game for Clark and Nick. Well-deserved here at number 2. I think if you look at top 10 lists across the internet and across what we've talked to here on the show, A Link to the Past is up there for everybody in the top 3, which kind of means the fact that it appeals to so many people and cross-pollinates across so many audiences makes a strong argument that The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past very well may be the best video game ever made. And then at number 1, IGN has Super Mario Bros. 3, which, maybe I would have put it where they had the first Super Mario Bros. Down there, a little lower. But I don't know about having it at number 1, Super Mario Bros. 3. Yeah, it's certainly, I agree it's higher than the original. But how do they not have Super Mario World, which is by far the best Mario game? How do they not have that anywhere in the top 10, but yet they've got 3 at number 1, and they've got the original Mario in their top 10 as well? Seems just like a gross oversight, missing the mark totally by not having Super Mario World in here somewhere. Just blows my mind how that's not in here. If you're going to have any Mario game at all in here, where's that one? So anyway, interesting list by IGN there. And I think just before we wrap up here, we want to call in the doctor, as we usually do, for a little bit of advice. So this week on Call the Doctor, I wanted to give a little advice on printers. And I know a lot of folks probably don't print stuff very often anymore. Maybe you do it at school or at work if you've got to print something, or go to like a FedEx office or something, like that. But it's convenient, actually, very convenient to be able to print stuff in your own home. And I think, for those of us who do a lot of like eBay type stuff and do like a lot of trade-ins, or just, as you become older and you have to, print stuff off for insurance purposes or to pay your bills or whatever, believe it or not, like some of my bills still can't be paid online. It's like ridiculous. But every now and then you do need to print something, a couple times a month, and it's just convenient to be able to do that in your home. But, because you don't do it often, you're going to want something that's cost effective, not all that expensive. You want something that's a good printer, and high quality, but good value for the money and not too expensive. And so I just want to recommend, again, nobody's paying to be mentioned on the show or anything like that. But I wanted to mention, I had a Lexmark printer before, and I hated it. It was just complete trash. It never worked. They, for some reason, like they never updated drivers and stuff like that, and it would just never talk to my computer without like doing a restart. It just seemed to always jam, like had all these problems. So I gotta say, thumbs down to Lexmark. But I found this highly reviewed Epson printer on Amazon, and it's the wow, that's a tough one to say. It's the Epson XP410 wireless printer and scanner. And so it's a great printer, Epson XP410 wireless printer. I got it on Amazon. It is very inexpensive, but it has a great LCD touchscreen to do all of the setup, do all of the head cleaning, all the commands you want to give it, everything. This nice little color LED screen is amazing. It's easy to set this printer up. It's set up in a matter of minutes with my computer. The scanning function on it, I usually take a picture of something with my phone and scan it that way through like Tiny Scan or one of those apps. But the scanner function on it is, it's there. It works quite well. It's never jams, anything like that. And then the other thing I really like about it, the catch is you might say, oh, well, yeah, sure, you got a great price on a printer, but you're going to have to pay, 60 to $100 every time you run out of ink, right? Those printer cartridges are a huge pain in the ass. Well, the other thing and the reason that, great printer is one thing, but the reason that really pushed me over the edge to recommending this printer is that, it's a true CMYK printer in that, you have a black, cyan, magenta, and yellow cartridges. So you have 4 ink cartridges, and I know what you're thinking. You're like, oh, here we go. This is getting even more expensive now. We got 4 cartridges instead of just like a black and a color or whatever, like some printers have. But actually, it's great because the printer tells you which color of ink you're running out of. So if you're just running out of magenta, you can replace just the magenta cartridge. And these Epson printer cartridges for this printer are like $8. I went on Amazon, brand new, and these aren't like the knockoff, refilled, remanufactured things. These are the official like Epson brand new cartridges for this printer. $8 for, so even if everything ran out, and you're paying like $32 to replace all 4 cartridges at once, which I don't think you ever would have to do. That's still like half the price of what my Lexmark printer cartridges were when I had that old bucket of bolts. So, again, it's the Epson XP410 printer. Highly recommend it. If you're looking to have a printer in your home, just to have something to conveniently print on once in a while. I've printed some photos on it too on photo paper. It looks excellent. It's a high quality, low price printer without any headache, and the individual ability to replace individual cartridges that are not expensive when it comes to the ink, it's top notch. It's great to have. So highly recommend that. So I think that's going to just about do it this week for the World Map Podcast. Again, I want to thank all the live viewers. I want to thank all of the folks who have been downloading. Our download numbers just keep on ticking up and up and up. And that's because of you, the listeners. And we're really never going to get this show fully off the ground and really have a great community built around it without you guys. So thanks to all of you. How can you help get us there, though, and help push us over that point where we've got a real community around the show and we're going to do content more often for you? There are really 2 ways that help a lot, and that is, number 1, leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes so that algorithm pushes us up, and it becomes a snowball effect, right? Once a few people start seeing us pushed up on the featured sections of the store, in the podcast section in iTunes, then it'll just be a snowball effect, and more people will see and download the show and try it, get more reviews. So, if you can take just a minute out of your day, it takes almost no time. You're always on your phone, bored anyway. Go onto the podcast app and go into iTunes on your phone and give us a 5-star review. And so that's one way that you can help. The other way is just tell a friend about the show. If you've got another friend who likes technology, comic books, movies, TVs, video games, just tell them about the show. Tell them, hey, you might want to try this show. Here's where you can download it. Give it a shot. So those are 2 ways you can really help, and it takes almost no time commitment to do that. So we really appreciate your help there. You can also just give us feedback about the show. What do you like to see more of or less of? You can send your questions and comments and feedback to worldmapcast@gmail.com. If you have something you want us to read on the show or some music you want us to play as an outro or something, we're happy to do that. Just send that on over to worldmapcast@gmail.com. We do the show live each week here on Google Hangouts on air every Sunday. You can also check out the archived videos of the show on YouTube. Just search for the World Map Podcast. Our website is worldmapcast.com. And as I mentioned, we're on iTunes. We're also on Stitcher for you Android users and folks who don't like the podcasts on iTunes. And we're also on social media, so you can keep up with us. And we're really using the Twitter account at World Mapcast to tweet out up-to-date show news, like the links to the live show, as well as share some gaming news and retweet. So if you're tired of following, a bunch of gaming accounts and cluttering up your feed, we're really trying to filter out like just the important stuff and retweet from some of those other gaming sources. give you a good streamlined view of what's going on in the world of gaming and entertainment that week. So you can follow us on Twitter. We're also on Facebook. We post the show link and things like that up there. Also ask some questions and have discussions with the community on Facebook. So that's, the World Map on there. You can search for facebook.com/World Mapcast to get to us as well. And new as of this week, we are on Snapchat at World Mapcast. That's right. We're World Mapcast on Snapchat too. And we're also now on Instagram. So World Mapcast, yet again, it's at World Mapcast. So you can come and check us out on Snapchat and Instagram. We'll be we'll be exploring new ways to share content with you and posting content exclusive to those platforms on there. So if you want to see the Super Mario pumpkin that I drew and got carved out last night, that's on Instagram right now. Along with, if you're a fan of the Nightmare Before Christmas, I did an Oogie Boogie Man as well. So you can go check out our Instagram account for pictures of those. And that's going to just about do it this week. So again, hope you'll follow us on social media, tell us what you want to see more of on the show, and let some friends know, give us some reviews. And that will take us to the end of this week's show. So until next time, I'm Poppin' Smoke.